my session that's called Lessons Learned from PySpark Notebooks and Extracting the APIs. My name is Štěpán Rešl. I'm from Czech Republic, so just next to. And before I will start anything, I would like to say huge thanks to all sponsors, because thanks to them and thanks to all the organizers, we're capable to be here, and I'm capable to be speaking for you and sharing you my passion, which is data and Fabric, Power BI, and currently also the PySpark. Because originally when I was starting, my main focus was a Power BI and a Power Query, and suddenly I've reoriented heavily to a PySpark. So I hope that I will be able to share you some of stuff that I see like extremely handy in case of a PySpark Notebooks development and how some parts can be used. As I said, my name is Štěpán Rešl, but you can call me Steve if it would be easier for you. I'm from a company called Data Brothers, and I'm also Microsoft most of the professional on the data platform. I have English blog, which is called the Data Meerkat, and if you would like to stay in touch, you can see here my LinkedIn and Twitter. And that's almost all from the introduction of myself, because I would like to directly jump into the agenda. First, I would like to be talking a bit about the notebooks, then also about some Markdown support, because it can very help you to better navigate in your notebooks and prepare everything to be reusable even for your colleagues. Also, I would like to cover some API basics and how to do API requests from the notebooks, which type of authorization you have been provided from Microsoft directly, and also some integration with a key vault or user tokens. Oh, sorry, there's a typo. And also I would like to show some inspecting on of the answers. But I think when we are talking about something like notebooks, which is extremely versatile, because notebooks are not here just for transformation, but even for machine learning, even for much more like now, because as you can see, this PowerPoint presentation is directly embedded into the notebook. In a notebook, you can actually render even HTML and much more, so it can be extremely versatile in case of presenting any type of information that you can possibly have. And with this, I would like to welcome you to the world of the notebooks. And I think we can directly go to the demo, because that's why we are here. After all the session, I will be sending the organizers the link to GitHub where you will be able to get this notebook, also with the presentation inside, so you will be able to download it, so you don't have to mostly write anything, let's say. Okay, so as I said, we are in the notebooks, and this is definitely not the first cell that I would have in any notebook, because if I would start any notebook with this cell, no one would be capable to understand what is happening inside. So even for that, I would like to start with introduction into the Markdown. Who's here who uses Markdown as a language? Okay, few of you. Who never heard about the Markdown as a language? Okay, not that much. So in that case, I'm very happy that only small amount of you never heard about it. And for you, I would just briefly like to introduce what Markdown is. Markdown is a markup language that helps us to create the text that can be rendered by very much another systems and standards, and they can be used even to generating another types of output, so even the HTML, etc. If you would ever come to my website, the Data Meerkat, I can very easily tell you that it's a whole written by Markdown, and just by some another code, Ruby, it's generated HTML from that. So it can be used very, very versatilely. And even here inside the notebooks, the Markdown has almost full support as you have in a GitHub. So if you're using a GitHub for storing your codes and you're creating the README files that should help people to navigate in your code or find the proper parts of a code or showing the nodes what's happening, the same can be done here with almost every possible element. And if you're missing some, like in any type of another notebooks, you can import another libraries. And what are the libraries? Because it's great to explain that notebooks are here to be able to execute any PySpark command, especially these notebooks, because we have different types of notebooks. You have even a Jupyter's, etc. But these ones in a Fabric are properly designed to be able to work with PySpark sessions that help us to transform our data quite properly. But every runtime that we have in any notebook supports some kind of Spark variant and Delta variant. Based on these setups, you have pre-installed some types of Python and PySpark libraries that can be directly used, which for most of the purposes is all what you need. But quite often you can find out that you will be missing some kind of libraries and you need to get them also into your notebooks. And in that case, Microsoft is not stopping you to using any another custom libraries, because once it's on a pip, you can directly install it. If there are some missing libraries that you would like to use, it's just up to you to upload them directly to your environments. And environments, in a perspective of notebooks, are some kind of a predefined workspace that creates for you ability to directly use everything that is pre-installed inside and predefine all the Spark settings that you should be able to use. But as you know, when Fabric was starting, and I mean in a public preview, so last year in April, sorry. At the end of April? Was it May? Okay, sorry, it was in May. At the May, in a documentation, we're capable to find some of these codes that actually helps you to set up your Spark sessions, and it helps you to predefine how the data at the end should be saved into your lakehouses. And as you know, these days these commands silently disappeared from Microsoft Learn because most of them were already implemented directly into the runtimes. So when you start the session, these will already be used. Not every time, and you don't every time have a control about if they will be used or not. So from my perspective, it's still better to use them directly. There was a question. Of course. So the question was if it's possible to zoom in. So yep. As you can see, I'm using some kind of markdown that helped me to navigate. So I have here some part of a notebook which is called initialization. Sorry, I'm not able to pronounce it right now. But under that I have sessions and libraries. Also, one of the huge benefits of using markdowns directly inside a notebook is a capability to use table content. Because once you have any header 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. in your markdowns in the notebooks, it directly generates these types of a table content, and it can helps you to navigate between multiple sections. So I can go directly to the libraries and it will just move me to a proper place where I should be and where I can see all my possibilities. Because the cells itself inside the notebooks are executed one by one from the top to the bottom, is quite necessary to set it up quite structurally. So every time on a beginning, we should be starting with setting the session, importing the libraries and the functions from the libraries. because for lots of people it's not a difference if I'm calling for the import or for from library import some kind of function. But the first one will grab me the whole library. Second one is just grabbing me some kind of functions from the libraries, and still they can be named as, if you're working with normally with Python, you know that if you will import something like NumPy or pandas, you quite often use naming conventions. So pandas will be PD, NumPy will be NM, etc. So even that can be used here to be able to reuse them. For me, currently I've pre-run the session because I don't know if you've tried to run a notebook by last 2 weeks, but before these 2 weeks, the session was starting in like 10-15 seconds. Right now it's around 3 minutes, and sometimes it's even worse. So when I was starting the session for this one, it was 4 minutes 30. And it sometimes happens. We know the data center for West Europe are a little bit overloaded right now. So it's great to know that if you would like to show some kind of demo with PySpark, pre-start your session and then go for this small setup, which tells you that session is ready. And if you will click on that, it will show you some information about the session with something which is called session timeout. And here you can change after how many minutes it will actually time out the whole session. So you can make sure that, okay, let's give us like 2 more hours before it will time out itself. Okay, so it's in total, sorry, 4 hours. And in that case, you can be sure that even if you're working with if your notebooks, or if you're just left for making a coffee, the session will not be closed, which should be pretty helpful for you. Okay, for now I will skip few parts because we will be returning to that, and I will start with just a previewing data from a PySpark. I would assume that most of you were on some kind of a Fabric analytics in a day already, or you've already played with the notebooks a bit. Yes or no? Awesome. So you know how to read the data from the lake houses. Okay, which type of these reading options are you using? The first one or the second one? Okay, let's use your hands for a first option. Okay, and who's using the second option? Okay. Do you think that there's difference between them? I mean, in case of a speed. I would also originally assume that there should not be any difference. There is. Huh? Yes, except it is. So I will just quickly try to run both of them. And yes, the first one currently required 3 seconds and 591 milliseconds. Second one required just 307 milliseconds. If I will try to rerun the first one, we will be able to get somewhere around 800, I think. Yes, 870 milliseconds. If I will rerun this one, it will be 330. And that's about how on the background are executed some kind of PySpark operations. To be honest, Spark SQL is fast, but quite often it's not the fastest option that you have. You have direct option to use a PySpark ability to read the files that are used in a delta, and that's in 99% of the time faster. If it would be just small amount of files in the background, doing it with a Scala would be even faster, because Scala executed differently than a PySpark. And that gets me to option that I'm actually capable in any cell set up different types of languages that I would like to use. 3 days ago, one of them disappeared and new one appeared. As you can see, here's something which is called .NET Spark C#, which is the currently new one that appeared really 3 days ago. And the original one that was here, which was the HTML, disappeared. Why would anyone would need to use the HTML inside the notebooks? Do you remember the presentation from the beginning? It's just the iframe. So that's something that helps me actually to render it here. And I'm not capable just to render HTML, but even the SVGs or any another part of the applications. So I can embed it directly into the notebook, some another application, so I can even manipulate with the data. Direct write-back option? No? Okay. So let's get back to the data preview, because I was showing you here the ability of reading the data directly from the lakehouse, and that if I'm using the PySpark option, it's much faster. But quite often, when you will be starting creating the bronze layer, you will be firstly loading your data as a files. And if you've ever used Azure Data Factory or some similar tools, you know that if you have more files, you don't want to be calling for one by one. You would like to create some bulk operation that would be able to grab all of them and combine them at once. In Power Query, we have table.combine, which is capable to do that if we will firstly unwrap the binary files by variant of the functions. And in this case of a PySpark, we still have a possibility to do something similar, but similarly as in a factory, we have the wildcards. So if I will drop here the wildcard of a star, I can look inside the sample data sets. And as you can see here, I have here some New York taxi green, 11, 10, 1, 12, and some kind of a pocket from the yellow. If I would like to receive all the green ones, I can predefine the names and just directly call for the answers. And even in this option, it's extremely fast to read these files and directly load them into the data frame. But when we would like to show the results, I think we all know that we have some function which is called display. Has any one of you find out that display has second parameter? No? Okay, so that might be at least something new that you will learn today. Directly if I use the display, it will show me some preview of my data. Usually it's showing you up to 1,000 of the rows or 5,000, depends on on your setup here. And you can even create some basic charts that will show you how your data look like, or even be able to customize it so you can very easily explore what's inside the data on very easy scale. But once we are talking about explanatory analytics, quite often we need to also do something which is called data profilation. And for that, we need to see a data distribution of every single column to be able to find out if we have some outliers or extremes in our data, to be able to get rid of them. A lot of people for that are using the histograms or the box plots. Yeah, it would be great to just import the matplotlib, then some fancy code to be able to see all this. It's not necessary. It's not necessary because I have second parameter which is called summary true. Oh. I will just give it a little moment, and it will firstly show me some unique and missing values, and once I've clicked on any of this column, I will receive statistic summary of that specific column. Unfortunately, default chart that was defined for this is a pie chart. Don't ask me why. I don't have the answer. I would expect here to have the histogram or something different. And luckily, we can at least see some different charts. Still, it's not the best option, but it's a better. And if I would go for something little bit more better for data profilation, I can go for summary function, which will grab my frame, create summary on every single column that we have, and it will shows you in a frame once you call for a display. It's quite similar to Power Query function, which is called table.profile. So you will receive the count, mean, standard deviation, min, and then another type of differentiators, plus the maximums and minimums of the results.
Question. Summary is related to the sample, like the first 1,000 rows, or the full data set?
Full data set. The summary here is directly used on a data frame itself, not on a display function. So it means it firstly will create a summary of a data frame and then it's trying to display. If I will remove it and I will just run play, still you will receive the result, but as a data frame. So then you need to somehow show it. So if I will go... sorry, who was talking? Yes. The question was if we are capable to somehow limit on what this summary will be used. And actually, yes, because it's just up to us. Currently, I've used it on a full data frame. Before, if I will use some filter function or select function to select just some specific columns or the rows, the summary will be created only on this part. So every time it just depends on me on which data frame I will use that. And as you can see, even as a basic show function, I was capable to render it. But still, that's not enough for me, because I still would like to see a little bit more. In Microsoft Learn, you can find out this type of a code. Sorry, I will zoom it. Which should be something like, hey, we have our frame, we will convert to pandas. And then we will count how many nulls we have actually in our frame. This code has a little issue. Do you know what issue it is? Converting function to pandas has a limit of megabytes that can be used. So try to load a sample data set, which is called New York Taxi Green, which has something like 76 million rows, and then try to convert it to the pandas. It will not work. It will not work because you will hit the limit of the size of a data frame. And to be honest, it's not a good way how to actually finding these nulls to converting from a Spark frame to pandas and then back again. For that is much better option that I've showed you, using that display function with a summary true, because we've received something quite similar to that uniques and missing. And here you can see that we are able to see much more missing files, because once I'm using the summary parameter allows me to also use the full frame, because it knows that it will just at the end squeeze it to just a few results. Next to that, we also have, I will get back to this, so display the New York City taxes just a few ways. And we have here one specific button, and not people ever click on that. Have you ever clicked on inspect? No, why not? Microsoft provides you extreme amount of capabilities in a UI and no one ever used that. That's such a shame. But if I will try to use it, I need to wait till the full query is re-executed. So it will generate another question against the data source. And then you can see full histograms of your data, of every single column. This is the easiest way how to start with a data profilation directly in a PySpark. So easiest way how to find if you have some extremes or outliers in your data, and then to get rid of them. Cool. So also I would like to introduce you just the attribute called schema. Schema, it's not a function. So you grab a data frame and it will return exact PySpark schema that can be reused. I will show you for what this we can use, because quite often when we are downloading data from APIs, there's some best practices that are quite often implemented. Like if I'm not receiving, or if I don't have some kind of attribute, I will not send it at all. So it will not be part of my answer that I will receive. But if you would like to load the data from a JSON into the PySpark, in that case you would receive an error, because you would have some rows or some part of a JSON that will have this attribute and some that will not. And in that case it will tell you that it's not capable to interference the schema. And for that there are some quick tricks how to override it. First, the one that we have is just a predefined schema on ourselves. That's quite nice, but if you've ever tried to download larger APIs like activity events from Power BI REST API, you can find out that in that case you would be defining these types for a very long time, and it can change this way. Some user will do an action that never been done, or some new activities would be providing, and then you need to redefine all your transformation process. That's not something that you would like to do, indefinite. So first things first, let's start to grab some data from API. I have here some API which is called News API. If you've never heard about that, it's an open API that gives you ability to receive the news all around the world. And you can even define from which state you would like to receive your answers. So first, I have here some kind of key. It's here just a plain text. And I don't mind that, it's completely free API. So even if after you would like to use my key, it's completely fine. I'm giving it to anyone. Then I'm using some country code, which will be Poland. So let's try to find out what News API have as a news from this beautiful country. And we have here some call for News API org top headlines based on a country with the API key. If you'd ever like to know a little bit more, just go to newsapi.org and you can find anything else. But I will just run this cell so everything will be saved, and then I need to have some ability to send my request against the APIs. For that, the easiest way how to do it by installing or importing the library which is called requests. Requests library gave you ability to send API calls with any type of call that you would like to get, post, put, patch, delete, update, whatever. So I will just import that. I will also import the rest of the functions because we might need that. And then I will go for some my predefined function, which is just a get response JSON. Where's the response? And it's grabbing from the requests function request. First, you need to define the method that will be used. So get, post, patch, put, delete, update, then some full URL, then you can define the headers and the data if you would like to be sending anything out. I will be using the header content type application JSON, so I know that I'm just requiring the JSON that should be returned. Okay, so it's start. So now on the background, the new function was created and I can call for it. So get response JSON, the URL that we've predefined up here, we would like to receive it by a get method and we are not sending any data. Also, if I would extract the response, you can see that first what I've received is status that it was okay, so we received the answer. We've received 30 results, and then there are some articles. I don't want to be expanding it, so I can manually, so I will directly drill into the JSON for just the articles. And here it is. Here's my JSON. I have here all the news. I'm not capable to read that, so maybe you can read the titles. And if I would like to open it in a PySpark, bam, I have the error. And we're exactly on the position what I've told you. Because right now, we're receiving some parts of a JSON that are completely empty. And in that case, PySpark is not capable to determine the data types, which is pity. So we have, as I said, two options. First one is to predefine our schema. So let's hit this schema, and when we are creating a data frame, we can just provide our created schema and hit a display. Bam, here's the answer. So just by providing a schema, I can eliminate that error. But what if I'm still receiving more and more data and I'm not capable to every time say the structure? In that case, there's an issue because it will be somehow expanding. And for that, the pandas frame can actually help us. Because in a pandas frame, if I will go a little bit here, I can create the pandas frame from a dictionary, which can be our original answer from the API, where I can say that we have some kind of columns that we would like to create from this dictionary. And once we have that, we would like to replace all the missing values, so all NaN, to none. Because pandas frame is using different null option than a Spark, then a Power Query, then a SQL. So quite often when they are transforming between each other, you also need to predefine that. Which is not fun, but if you know that, you can focus exactly on these small limitations. So I'm replacing NaN to none. I'm grabbing all columns that I have, and in all these columns, I'm changing the type directly to a string. Because there's ability in create data frame from a pandas frame, and that it's actually grabbing the data type that were defined for that pandas frame and using it inside the PySpark. So if I will try to do it, you can see that I actually received every single column with no error, but they are defined as a text. And later, in a PySpark, I can define my types only for the columns that I need. But still, I can receive every single answer with no issue, with no error that will appear. And if I will, on this new data frame call schema, I can actually receive my schema that was created, and if I will just copy paste it, So let's deploy that. As you can see, it also worked. So even if you don't want to be writing everything from scratch, you can help yourself with firstly creating it through a pandas. It will create you all the structure, how it looks like, and then you can just change the data, change data types directly inside. So right now we know that published at is definitely not a text, but it can be timestamp type. Maybe it's not timestamp type because it might use a different different quotes. So even for that, it's quite often better to use some standardized type and then just overcast it in the PySpark itself. But this is the first way that can help you to actually extract any API with no further errors. And I've intentionally mentioned activity events. Do you know how much columns or attributes is currently returned? I mean, like different attributes returned from activity events right now, API of Power BI or Fabric? Many is great great answer. Huh? Yes, you can guess. There was a guess 256. Who thinks it's more? Okay, how much do you guess? 1000 is very high guess and it's lower. Currently, returned type of answers is over 380, which altogether generates over 400 different attributes, which is wild. And to be able just to write it from up to down when you don't know when new will be added or when some of them will be removed, it's a little bit hard. So quite often it's better to use this way to have really dynamic option. But we are also here to see another option that we have in case of a Power BI and a Fabric. I have here two main endpoints that we currently have for supported APIs. If you were yesterday on a session of a Matthias and a Gabi, they told something that there are also some unsupported APIs. So every time if APIs start like this, it's supported one. Because in that case, it uses proper proxy server. There are some others that starts like Wabi or something like that. I will not tell you more, but in that case, it's internal API. So I have here two endpoints, and to them I can add much more parts of the URL that actually should help me to receive my data. In case of Fabric and Power BI, we have main two options how to authorize about again these API endpoints through user token and application token. These two tokens are completely different because the application token is created for something which is called service principal. And for that, mostly people are delegating their permissions, and through this delegation, this application is capable to use these APIs. Unfortunately, lots of API calls in a Fabric and Power BI are limited, and you cannot use service principals to call for these endpoints. And it can even change from time to time. Usually I use service principals to calling for something like capacities, to receive all capacities that I have in my tenant. Today, when I've tried to call for this call, it told me, no, this call is currently forbidden for any application. What? I'm doing this call every day for past 4 years, and today it changed? Nice. Luckily, still we can use user tokens. Has anyone ever tried to generate user token? Okay, 1, 2, 3. How it goes? It was a pleasant experience? Exactly, not at all. Luckily in the notebooks, it's extremely pleasant way how to do that. Because huge thanks to Microsoft for creating something like notebook utils and especially MS Spark utils. Because MS Spark utils is running under the session of user who's currently owning the notebook. And thanks to that, it can create his own personal token. So yes, in a notebook you can behave like any other user, which can be sometimes a little bit tricky, because in that case you have options how to do almost all calls around the Power BI service or Fabric service. And as you can see, here's just a very simple call: MS Spark utils, credentials, token, PBI. And this is something that will generate you the user token for all Power BI activities. Very simple call. Can be automated by notebooks or even better by pipelines. So if I will grab this function, nice, it was being created. I will just make a little change here. So get a response to JSON will use receiving this bearer token, and it will use this type of a header. This header right now will use also the authorization with the bearer token that was received originally from a call for the users. So let's also try it. And we can go down where, okay, a little bit more here, where we can currently ask for something like groups. And as you can see, I used my own token to receive all the groups where I have my access. Okay, not all, just top 50, because there's also some limitations in case of how many groups we can receive by one call. Yes?
Does it work if it's a scheduled run?
Yes, it also worked if it's a scheduled run.
Okay, from both the notebook scheduler and the pipeline?
Yes, it worked with both scheduler. It even worked if you have one notebook that is running in parallel in other notebooks. So this is actually quite a great way how to do something that lots of securities in a companies are not happy for. Because there's not just a support for PBI, but also for much more services. For that you can create this token. So if any user will be using this way, they need to be aware what they are actually sharing. I can also use this type of a token for something much more prettier. So for Scanner API, which is actually one of the best API that we have. If you would like to know which APIs are used by Purview, ta-da! Because on the background, this API is capable to tell you extreme amount of information about all your workspaces. It also has some limitations, but just a few. First, I need to have some array of workspace IDs that I need to use. So I've already grabbed them. And then I have some HTTP query that helps me to specify which type of the answer I would like to receive. So I would like to have the lineage of all my items between each other. I would like to receive the data source details, dataset schema, dataset expression, etc. So in that case, I'm capable to extract all M code from all semantic models, even all DEX measures. Okay, I know. With SEMPTY, if you've ever heard about it, which is a semantic link, I can do something similar. But semantic link works only in the workspaces that has a Fabric capacity. This works with any workspace. So I have the HTTP query, and then I have, yes.
I need the admin privileges to use this, like tenant admin.
The question was if I need the tenant admin rights to be able to run the scanner API. First, I would say it depends. Because normally I can run the scanner API by service principal, but I think, yes, it requires tenant.read.all permissions to be able to receive this, and also the answer that is responded quite heavily depends on the setup of your tenant settings, where is extended admin views. Sorry, I think I can show you that. It will be even easier. So let's go for the admin portal and API, and yep, enhance API responses with detailed metadata. If this is turned on, you will receive much more information from the scanner API. And of course, you have here the responses with DAX and mashup expression. Mashup expression means encode.
There is one question from the chat.
Uh-huh.
Does it mean that we can use Power BI admin API calls even if we are not admins, but we know who has such role?
No. We can use admin API calls if we have access to service principal who has these rights. If we have his client secret and client ID, we can do that. But if we are just a normal user without admin rights and we don't have access to this service principal, we're not capable to use admin APIs, luckily. That would be a huge security breach. Okay, but back to the scanner API. I have here prepared some code, and that's also why I'm saying that I will send you the notebook after, so you will be also able to use that. Because this scanner API, the main limit that is here is number of queries that can be done by an hour, and for how many workspaces you can ask in one request, which is up to 100 workspaces. So here's also the chunk system that will, if you will put here like 300 workspaces, it will create 3 chunks of 100 and it will send them together. Right now the chunk size is set up just to 2, but it can be changed to 100 or whatever. It's actually, the scanner API is asynchronous API, so you will just receive it started, and before it will receive the answer, you need to be calling for another API, which is called scanner status. And if it's true, if you receive it, it's already completed, then you can receive the answer. Right now, I just use the time sleep 15 because I know that inside of them is almost nothing. Oh yeah, and I've missed a little part, which is called the flattening. Because when I'm doing pagination like in this time, and for many APIs I need to do a pagination because I will not receive everything in one run, I quite often need to combine everything into array and then flatten this array to one frame. In Python, it's extremely easy to do that because we're capable to write something so easy like this. For all items in a row, in a grab and expand them under each other. So it's a very short line that can extremely help you to receive your answers. And if I will go back, hit a play again, it will send 3 calls because currently I have 5 workspaces that I'm pushing it inside and the chunk size is 2. I will just wait that 15 seconds and I will receive my answer. Okay, so it was executed, so I can see the response. And as you can see, I've right now received almost all the information from these workspaces. Actually, scanner APIs quite often contains much more information that you would expect. Like, it was the first API that knew about domains. Here inside any workspace, there was, I hope that it's still somewhere here, it might be a little bit lower, but was one attribute that tells you the ID of the domains. It also tells you about all the reports, dashboards, datasets. If it's properly configured, you're able to see even that DEX measures and the M codes. I'm not capable to seeing them here. And that's also sometimes what happens inside this API, that even if you have everything turned on, there's internal cache on a server that doesn't allow you to receive this data. There's easy way how to get this off, just turn it off and on again, and it will start work. So quite often basic implementation of this principle, turn it off and on, works even here. And once we have this our frame, you can see that again we're not receiving all types of data. So for us, it would be quite hard to create a schema. So we need to do something similar as before. So convert it into the pandas frame and then to be able to see the results. So if I will do that, you can directly see you have here some ID, some name of a workspace, and then the reports, data sets, dashboard, data flow, data marts, lake houses, notebooks, SQL analytic endpoints, and sometimes even more. I'm saying it sometimes because sometimes new attributes appear, sometimes it disappears, and it slightly depends. I think right now it also supports warehouses, but it's not supporting reflex currently, if I think correctly, but sometimes it appears, even with some definitions under it. So this is actually sometimes pretty great to checking if you would like to see how something works. Like, is there someone who uses a new function which is called explore? No one? Just Lars, okay. Who at least heard about the explore? You definitely did, okay. For the rest of you, explore function is capability to connect to your data set and just do a quick visualization of few parts of a data. It should be here for the very quick explanatory of your data set. And if it's supported for especially fabric items, because it's also implemented in Lakehouse and in a warehouse to be able to directly see the response from your SQL queries or from the visual queries, I would expect, to be honest, that it will use direct lake mode. It's not using direct lake. It's using direct query mode. And how to find this out? Just save it in any workspace and run this API against it. You will receive all the answers that you need. And as I said, once we have our pandas frame, we can do completely the same to convert it into Spark frame. So at the end, we can just grab our data and save them directly into our lake houses. If we have some partitioning options, we can even be partitioning the answers by a day, so by the changes. And for that is also quite often great to implement. Where it is, it's on complete top. Yep, the timestamp of your running notebook. Because if you will ever go for the monitoring that we have inside the fabric, so the monitoring hub, you can see all the refreshes of the notebooks, and you can even see the answers of every single cell. And if you've implemented some timestamp here, so even the preview of a timestamp, you can be sure that that notebook run in particular time, particular date, and you can be sure that everything was running how you want it to run and when the errors are appearing. And I think this is all for now from me. I hope that you've learned something new about the notebooks, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you. Oh, yeah, of course. In case of a key vault, you need to define the key vault name. It will also be used through PySpark utils by credentials get secret, and from that key vault, you're asking for specific saved secret, and it will receive the answer. So if I will go for get up token, I can do almost the same. So I will just change the function that will, so now it will use a bearer token from a key vault. And down here, you can see to how many workspaces I have access. So let's now try into how many workspaces this service principal has access. Just into 2. So it's even extremely easy to use key vault, but for that purpose, you need to add your key vault, your service principal into the key vault as oh, where is the mail? Come on, here. You need to add Power BI service as a key vault secret user.
I am retrieving secret in a slightly different way, and can this secret be exposed?
No.
Okay, it's also secure.
Yes, this is using Microsoft main library that was created for these purposes. So it's a very focused on the privacy of that. It's absolutely the same. It's absolutely the same library, just with different name, and it's not updating anymore.
Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Question: if I gonna copy and paste the node from Fabric notebook to Azure Databricks notebook, will it work?
That's actually a good question. If I will do a copy paste from a Fabric notebook to a Databricks, Azure Databricks notebooks, I would assume that most of it should work. Not 100% sure, but of course, semantic link will not work. PySpark utils, I'm also not sure if it will work, because there are some libraries that were developed just for the Fabric. Semantic link definitely will not work anywhere else than inside the Fabric directly. That's something that was published in one of the blog posts when the semantic link was announced. Any other question? If no, then thank you so much.